Greetings. This is Doc Ock coming at you live and direct today from Black Facts Headquarters Central here in beautiful Kent, Ohio, with another installment of Doc Ock at noon and 9. So glad to have so many of you with us today. We are proud and what's the word for it? Elated to have so many viewers, so many supporters. We appreciate the donations that you all have been sending in. Although they have been somewhat small, but we appreciate every single dime, and we plan to put every single penny to good use. So thank you very much, and we're going to go ahead and continue on with our program for the day. The proverb, oh, let me not forget, please make sure if you're watching on Facebook, give us a like. If you're watching on YouTube, give us a thumbs up. If, no matter what platform you're watching on, please make sure to spread the word far and wide on your own personal platform. In other words, by word of mouth. Thank you very much. And then go ahead and, we'll go ahead. We're just going to go ahead and move right on into our proverb of the day and our poem of the day, because we got a poem for you today too. And then we'll go ahead and read our story. So let's see. Okay, here we got one here. This one is a poem by Althea Romeo on woman. A woman wears a mask of charm to hide her worried face when her lover's absence, if too long, confirms her hourly pace. From chair to window, anxiety grows, the yeast of every hour, but yet her feeling, even sour, will grow sweet at the sound of her familiar footstep or knock. A pendulum of love will rock and swing within her chest, and when his head is in the door, a smile will pour forth like the early morning sun to greet him. And she entitled that simply Woman, from 1974, out of her book Shushu Moko Jumbi. Shushu Moko Jumbi. Those are the dancing spirits of Africa and the islands that we've seen, particularly in West Africa and all through the Caribbean. Proverb for the day. They say you can never go home, and truer words have never been spoken, because by the time you put everything in order to make your return home, home is already gone. Trying to return home, to go home, is like trying to catch a train that has already left the station. You can return to the place where the train used to be, but the train is no longer there. That train is now far, far, far up the road. And so it is with returning home. By the time you, quote unquote, return to the place where the things happened, the place may not even exist. And when you come home to, return to Kent for homecoming, this is what one of the first things that you will note is that nothing is the same. The old gate that used to be where it was, no longer there. It's been replaced by a new gate, and the gate has been relocated. So many things have changed since the time that I went to school at Kent, to where you can really hardly recognize the place anymore. So you really can never go home. Once you have left, it's over. You're going to have to make a whole new home. So much for that. Now, for our story for today, we're returning to the story of Norma Marceray. Norma Marceray. And we were reading yesterday. Matter of fact, she was just waiting for the dawn of her second day in Kent, Ohio. She was anxiously awaiting the dawn of her second day in Kent, Ohio. So let's see what happened to Norma Marceray on this second day in Kent, Ohio. As we go ahead and transition over to our slideshow. There we go. Transition right into the slideshow, and we do like that, and everything should be good. Now, she had her first night in Kent. She ended up sleeping in the bed with Susie Jones. Unbeknownst to her, that's what the plan the landlady had for her, is that she was really not even paying for a full room. She was really paying for like half a room, or a room with half a bed, because half of that bed was to be occupied by Mrs. Jones' daughter, Susie. And so that night they slept together in this bed that was of dubious quality. In other words, it had a lot to be desired. It wasn't the firmest mattress in the world, and the bed springs up under it were worn out as well. So in the end, it turns out that Susie and Norma slept in the bed, but before dawn, before the sun came up, Susie got up and went to sit in the chair in the front room, a lumpy upholstered chair with her pillow around her shoulders and her winter coat covering her lap, her knees, and her feet. The next night, Susie slept upstairs, but even sleeping alone, I never got used to that floppy traveling mattress. Seesawing on a saggy bed spring, I never got used to most things in the Jones house. I was bombarded with revolting sensations involving every sensory perception of sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. The little annoyances became bigger day after day, even when I was invited to sit at the table and Mr. and Mrs. Jones welcomed me to share their blessings. The fried salt pork instead of bacon, the thick rough grits, and the crisp fried caught today creek fish, foods I had never eaten before, initiated unpleasant smelling, tasting, and feeling sensations. The incredible scene that set me in orbit was Mrs. Jones' weekend chitlin cleaning ritual. Mr. Jones and some neighbors went to the slaughterhouse on Friday evening or early Saturday morning and returned home with 2 large galvanized laundry tubs filled with hog bowels, bulging with the feces of recently slaughtered swine. The sight of Mrs. Jones, Susie, and a neighbor or two extracting the bowel contents from long, curling, convoluted gray intestines was, to say the least, revolting. By noon, the vaporous stench of the boiling excrement scented chitlins forced me retching into the cold outdoors with no place to go except the college library or the streetcar and interurban train station downtown. The first Sunday in Kent, I accompanied my landlady, her husband, and their daughter Susie, to church. Mrs. Jones, dressed in finery that surprised me, seemed eager to introduce me to the congregation and to her friends. She proudly sat in the amen corner to the right of the church and close to the pulpit. The choir was behind the pulpit, and Susie, not nearly as well attired as her mother, was surprisingly at ease there. Mr. Jones sat in the front row with a group of other well-suited, impressive-looking gentlemen. They looked so important, but I never knew if they had a specific church function. I sat halfway between the front and the back of the storefront church, which seated perhaps 50 worshipers when filled to capacity. The Sunday morning service, although scheduled for 11 a.m., did not start until well after 11:30. The benediction at 2 p.m. signaled that a spiritual pinnacle had been reached and everyone could go home happy. It was an emotional service, far different from the Catholic and Methodist congregations I knew. Moment by moment, emotions gained momentum of uninhibited proportions. Susie, quiet, demure, awkward, Susie came to life in the choir. She swayed, clapped her hands, and sang lustily. She was a kindred Christian spirit with the other choir members, repeated amens and yes lords, and expressed the congregation's agreement to the preacher's message. It's a hard, sinful world out there, the preacher shouted, but God will take care of his own. A woman jumped up and shouted, yes, he will. Yes, he will. The choir picked up the mood and started singing, God will take care of you. Soon half the church was singing and shouting and clapping hands. Mrs. Jones and the ladies in the amen corner rocked back and forth, dabbed a tear from their eyes, and uttered meditatively, yes, Lord, yes, Lord. The minister concluded his message and welcomed sinners and new members into the fold. The choir sang another song as a collection was taken. A deacon announced the weekly meetings and welcomed attendance at the Sunday school, teachers' classes, choir practice, missionary society, and prayer meeting. Then the visitors were asked to stand and introduce themselves. When I announced I was a student at Kent Normal College and was staying at the Jones home, Mrs. Jones stood and took a bow. The minister congratulated me with, it's good to see educated young people who hadn't forgotten God. College students sometimes get so interested in big words and science and a lot of ologies and foolishness. Amen, amen, the congregation shouted, that they think they don't need God. You's most welcome to worship with us, sister. As we walked the Sunday silent street to the Jones home, I was bothered by the high degree of church emotion and the pastor's remarks about education. People who can reach such heights of emotion can forget about meaningful life goals. People who reject knowledge cut themselves off from the mainstream of competitive pursuits. Where were these people going? What did they want from life? I wondered. My mom had taught us that wisdom, knowledge, and God were partners. Every time you study, you're praising God. You are strengthening the mind and the intelligence He has given you. Mom repeated over and over. Mom also taught us about emotional control in the areas of happiness, sorrow, fear, and anger by referring to a scale from 1 to 10. The higher the reaction, 7 to 10, the more intense, more noisy, more violent the display. The lowest ratings of 1 to 3 meant one's emotions were so moderate as to make others wonder if they existed at all. Emotions at the range of 4 to 6 were average. They existed, but no one was greatly disturbed, hurt, or inconvenienced by the individual's feelings and behavior. We were taught, we observed, and we learned we could be deliriously happy, and yet our laughter, our joy could not be heard beyond the four walls of our home or more than 20 feet beyond the front and back porch where we gathered for fun and games. We could become angry and not resort to name calling or fighting or plan revenge. We could be afraid, but we were taught to stop and think through our fears rather than scream panic and fall apart. To wail and cry with sadness and sorrow was explained as shaking our fist in the face of God and being rebellious. Go into your closet and ask God for his comfort. Mom advised, the world does not really care whether you are happy, sad, fearful, or angry. So why be bothersome? That church service was somewhat bothersome to me, and so was the Sunday dinner. At the table, as my plate was filled with potato salad, coleslaw, cornbread, and chitlins, often pronounced chitlins, I was overcome with nausea and rushed first to the bathroom, then to my bedroom. I experienced a deep, deep longing to be back home. I was not at all sure Mom would welcome me after my determined departure. If I went back so soon, it would be on her terms. Get a job and help me support this family. I could not go back to Mrs. Reeves because she needed me as a cook only 6 months of the year. I had to stay in school until June, but did it have to be with the Joneses? Their house, their daughter, Susan, my bedroom, their cooking smells, their church service, all annoyed me. It was not until I had a course in sociology at Temple University 2 years later that I understood the meaning of culture shock. I had maximum shock on the level of 8 to 10. It was no average 4 to 6 or minimum 1 to 3. So we'll end right here and we'll return and pick up from there. Not tomorrow. We'll pick up from there on Monday because tomorrow is the weekend, not the weekend. We think of it as the strong end. And so in order to make you grin on the strong end, we're going to be posting up a playlist and there'll be all kind of things on the playlist. If you've been watching this on YouTube, you might have noticed some ads and other photos from a movie by the name of Putney Swope that many of you haven't seen since your days back here in Kent. But those of you that have seen it know exactly what I'm talking about. That for some reason, I'm not sure why, that movie was always associated with Dr. Crosby. So we're going to post that up for y'all to check it out and see what you think. Was it the personality or was it just the way that the brother that stars in the movie looked? Because he does have a striking resemblance to Dr. Crosby, beard and all. But we'll leave that for you to see on the weekend. So look for the playlist. It'll go up at noon on Saturday. The playlist to look for is a Black Homecoming. So look for that on Saturday. In the meanwhile, we're going to say peace out without a doubt. This is Doc Ock signing off. Please don't forget to subscribe to the Tubular Black Facts channel right below. Of course, if you have a donation you'd like to give, you can always give no matter what day it is during the month. But our fundraising drive for the month has ended as of yesterday. So we're going to go ahead and move on and groove on. But if you can still tell your friends and family and subscribe yourself to our Tubular Black Facts channel, that'd be great. All right, peace with justice, because anything less disgusts us. Look for us black here tonight at 9 o'clock. This is Doc Ock at noon and 9 signing off.